This story comes from a book named Does God Have a Big Toe? Written by Rabbi Gelman. Once upon a time, a very, very long time ago, two people lived in a garden. But you've probably heard that part of the story already. They lived in the garden of... Okay, I'm going to close my eyes and ears and let you guess. If you guessed the Garden of Eden, you were right. And their names were, I bet you can guess this one too. Did you guess Adam and Eve? You got it. Well, Adam and Eve lived very comfortably and ate very well in that garden. Yummy eggplants that were glossy purple. Potatoes that were so big it took both of them to pull one out of the ground. Tomatoes as big as your head. They had everything they could ever want, but they were a little bit bored. So one day, when Adam was walking around the garden next to the wall, he saw a hole in the wall, and curious, he put his eye up to the hole and looked out. He couldn't see much. You could make a hole in the wall by making your hands like this too, and look through it with one eye. Well, he looked, and he saw something strange outside the wall. So he called Eve, "Hey, Eve, come over. I see something strange outside this wall. It's this strange itty-bitty plant." Well, Eve looked, and Adam looked, and they couldn't figure out what it was. Can you? You might have one growing in a garden near you. They came every day to look at the plant, and finally they asked God, "What is this plant? It doesn't look like any of the plants inside the wall." "A tomato plant," God said. "Really?" said Eve. "That tomato plant isn't looking so good." Adam and Eve worried a little bit about the itty-bitty tomato plant, so they came to look at it every day. And it was looking even worse. "Oh dear, what happened? Hey God," they called, "what happened to the tomato plant?" After a long while, God spoke to them. "The tomato plant is dead." Adam and Eve cried. They asked God, "Why did it have to die? Nothing dies here in the garden." But God would not answer this question, no matter how many times they asked. So they became angry with God, and they demanded that God let them out of the Garden of Eden so they could take care of the tomato plant. God said to them, "You can leave, but you can't come back." Well, Adam and Eve got up and walked right out of the garden and right over to that little tomato plant that had dropped over and turned brown. And they took the seeds from the tiny little tomato and they planted them. And they brought it good soil and water and watched it with the sun. And one day, a little tiny shoot came up. And they were happy. Inside the garden, nothing needed help. And even though outside the garden, everything needed help, they were not sorry. They could not return.